Hey everyone! Welcome to one of the best Node.js courses for beginners on Udemy. If you have ever wanted to become a backend developer, build real-world APIs, and create powerful web applications, you are in the right place. This course will take you from absolute beginner to an advanced Node.js developer, step by step in the easiest, most practical way possible. No time wasted, no confusing explanations, just real learning and real results. You don't need any Node.js experience to start. All you need is basic JavaScript. And don't worry, we have included a JavaScript crash course inside to get you ready. You will learn everything you need to become a confident Node.js developer who can build complete backend applications from scratch. We will explore Express.js, an amazing framework that makes backend development fast and fun. You will learn how to build RESTful APIs, handle requests, and connect to databases like MongoDB using Mongoose. Throughout the course, you will work on real-world projects, including an inventory management system and a full e-commerce application. These projects will teach you CRUD operations, request validation, localization for multi-language apps, security best practices, authentication and authorization, API structure, and clean coding practices. By the end, you will be ready to build production-ready applications that follow professional standards. We will use Node.js, Express.js, MongoDB, Mongoose, and many more tools that real developers use every day. Plus, you'll get friendly, fast support whenever you need help, a learning experience that's fast, clear, and practical, full source code for every project. So, if you are ready to learn Node.js the right way, build real projects, and become confident backend developer, enroll now and let's start this exciting journey together. I'll see you inside the course. In this section, we'll take our very first steps with Node.js. Before diving into advanced topics, it's important to set a strong foundation by understanding how Node works and how to set up your development environment. Here's what you'll learn in this section. Installing Node.js on your computer, creating your first Node.js project from scratch, understanding the package.json file and why it's essential, what NPM is and how to use it effectively, and more useful tips to get you comfortable with Node.js. By the end of this section, you will have Node.js fully installed, a project initialized, and confidence to create new applications. In this lesson, we're gonna learn how to install Node.js. So, in Google, just type Node.js and select this first option. Then press here on download. You will see here two options. The first option is to installing Node.js using the terminal or the command line. So if you open applications in Mac OS and just search for terminal and open it, you're gonna see something like this. The terminal in Mac OS is a command line. We use it to run commands. In Windows, called command prompt or CMD. You can run it on Windows with the shortcut Windows button with R to run the command line. And here actually, I'm not gonna use the command line to install Node because I will select the simpler option here because I assume that you are beginners to programming, so I'm gonna use this second option, get pre-built Node.js. First, you should select your operation system. If you press here, you're gonna see Windows, Mac, Linux. For me, I'm gonna select Mac OS. If you are working with Windows, please select this Windows. And for me also, I'm gonna select this ARM64 because I'm running on Mac OS M1 chip. Then I'm gonna press here, Mac OS installer to download it. Now I'm downloading Node.js. Just wait for seconds and let me show you how to install it. Now the download is done. Let's press on it to install it. I'm gonna press here continue, agree, install, and just type my password and press install software. If you see here, you're gonna notice this package has installed Node version 22, NPM version 10. Now I'm gonna press close and move to trash. Now if you want to make sure that you've installed Node.js correctly, just open the terminal or the command line if you are using Windows and just type the following: node-v, and you should see something like this: v22.12.0. You should see this number or newer version. Now after installing Node, it's time to download our code editor. To type code, we need code editor. So in Google, just type VS Code. We're gonna use this code editor and select this first option and press on this download and download it and install it. After installation, you can open VS Code and you're gonna see this interface. Next lesson, we're gonna create our first Node project. In this lesson, you're gonna create your first Node.js project. This project is gonna be bookstore management system. We're going to manage the inventory of our bookstore, okay? So to create a new project, just go to any folder that you want and create a new folder and name it with the name of your project. In our tutorial, our first project that we're gonna build is gonna be inventory management system. Or we can make it shorter. Let's make it inventory management, like this. Now let's open our folder inside our code editor. So here, our VS Code, let's open it and drag and drop our folder inside it. Now to create Node.js project, just open the terminal. To toggle the terminal, here the shortcut. In Mac, just press Ctrl and this string sign here to open the terminal. You can check the command on your device, or you can drag and drop it from here, but it's better to know the shortcut for it. So here, I can drag like this and run this command, npm init. This command allows you to create a new Node.js project, but he will start an interactive setup. I mean, he will ask you some questions. For example, package name, the version, the description, the entry point, test commands, etc. So we can just add this flag -y to skip those prompts. I mean to skip those questions. So he will create package.json file immediately with default values. So let's press enter. Now, if you check your folders, you're gonna see a new file here called package.json. What's package.json file? This file is the configuration file for Node.js project. You can think of it as the identity card plus settings plus dependencies list of the app. Every Node.js project must have one. This file has some main properties. First, the name, and this name property is the project or package name, and it must be lowercase and no spaces. So you cannot add space like this. If you want to add space, you can add this hyphen. And also we got here a spelling error management. I just fixed it. The second property is the version, and it's the project version. And this main property is the entry point of your app. Here it's index.js. You can change it, for example, to app.js. And since it's index.js, I'm gonna leave it as it is. So I'm gonna create index.js file and start coding inside it later. This property called scripts, and this is to add some custom terminal commands for your project. We're gonna also add some scripts later. And here the keyword property, and this is an array of keywords to help people find your package if you publish your package. And here's the author. You can just add here your name, because here is the name of the author who wrote the project. And here is the license, and this property refers to the license for using your code. Once it's ISC is the default open source license from NPM. And finally, here's the description, and here's a short description about your project. Next lesson, I'm gonna introduce you to NPM, and you're gonna install your first package. Before I introduce you to NPM, let's just fix our project name. So we got here a spelling error. Management should be like this. We forgot to add E here, management. Now let's open our code editor and drag and drop our project inside it and trust it. That's the NPM.js website. This NPM stands for Node Package Manager, and this website, it's the official registry and hub for JavaScript Node.js packages. You can think of it as a search engine plus marketplace for open source libraries. So you can use those libraries to save a lot of time because you are going to get up-to-date supported powerful packages from it. But how to install a package? That's pretty easy. Just search for package name, for example, Express, and press search. And you're gonna find here the Express package. Just open it. You're gonna see here the data about Express.js package. For example, weekly download, we got here over than 28 millions of download per week. And here's the packet, the unpacked size of the package, and here's the version. To install it, just copy this command like this, npm I express. This I stands for install. So you can type npm install express or npm I express. So here in our project, just open the terminal and paste this command, npm I express. This express is the package name. You can delete it and add any another package name, for example, .env, like this. And once you press enter, you're gonna install this package. And you can find it here inside Node modules. So if you open this folder here, Node modules, you're gonna find this .env library. Next lesson, you're gonna learn how to remove a package. In previous lesson, you've learned how to install a package. And in this lesson, you're gonna learn how to remove it. If you open package.json here, you're gonna find this new property called dependencies. And here's the dependencies of your project. In previous lesson, we've installed .env library. So it appears here. What if we want to remove it? To remove any package, just type this command, npm uninstall, and the name of the package. The name of it is .env. So just type npm uninstall.env and press enter. Now once you press enter, the package is removed, and here also it's not exist anymore in package.json file because our package is removed. And here also in Node modules, it got removed also. In this section, we'll dive into Express.js, the most popular framework for building web applications with Node.js. Express make it simple to create routes, handle requests, connect to database, and keep your project organized. What you'll learn in this section, what Express.js is and why it's so widely used. And we will use Nodemon to automatically restart the server during development. Also, you'll be able to create your first route in Express and connecting your project to MongoDB for data storage and using .env to keep your app secure with environment variables. And more practical skills to start building real applications. By the end of this section, you will be comfortable working with Express.js and ready to move on to building more advanced features. Now, once the main entry point is index.js, let's create this file. So in our project, let's create a new file and name it index.js. And let's type here any JavaScript code, for example, console.log hello world. Now let's try to run this file. So in your terminal, just run this command, node index. See what we got, hello world, because he executed this code, console.log hello world. Now let's create our server. And to create our server, we're gonna use Express framework. So in Google, let's just search for Express.js. Look, Express is Node.js web application framework. Let's go to our NPM website and install it using npm I express. Our framework has more than 47 millions of download per week. So let's just copy this command to install Express. and go back to our code and paste this command npm I express. Now, if you go back to package.json, you're gonna see this. In dependencies, we got express. And if you open the node modules folder, you're gonna see new bunch of folders. Okay, now let's go and create our server. To use express, we just need to import it. And to import express to our project, we use require function. So just type require and put here the name of library or framework that you want to use. In our case, we're gonna just type express and let's store it in a constant. So const express equals to require express. This require function look for express library in your node modules folder here and load it so you can use the features of express. Then we store it in a constant called express. Now let's create an express application instance. So const, let's name it app equals to express. This function is create an application object. This object contains all methods and properties you need to define routes or use middlewares. For example, you can just type app.get to create a GET request, or you can use the use method to add middleware, or we can start our server using lesson. And this lesson method is a method provided by Express. And the purpose of it, start HTTP server. So just we need to add the port number, and pass also a callback function. And inside this callback function, we're gonna just log something. console.log app listening on port 3000. Now to test it, let's create our first HTTP GET request. So here, app.get, pass here the route name, then we pass here a callback function, and this callback take the request and response. And let's return in the response anything, for example, res.send hello world. Now let's save our file and try to run it. So node index. Now we got here app listening on port 3000. Let's make it bigger. App listening on port 3000. Now let's test our server in Chrome. So let's open the Chrome and just type local host 3000 like this and press enter. Now what we got is hello world. As you see, here's the response that we've returned here in this route. In this lesson, I would like to introduce you a great Node.js library called Nodemon. But first, let me show you the problem that Nodemon fixes. We return here hello world, okay? And we start our server. So if you open our localhost, you're gonna see hello world. What if we want to change it? For example, we need to make it hello there, like this, and press save. Now if we go to our localhost and refresh, it's still hello world. And to make this change, you need to close the server and open it again. So here, close the server using Ctrl and C and start it again. So node index, run our server again. Now if you refresh, it changed hello there. Now we want to change it automatically when we change the code without closing the server and open it again. So we got a great library called Nodemon, and this library automatically restart the server when changes are detected. So let's go back to Google and go to NPM and search for Nodemon. Now let's open the Nodemon library and install it using this command. So in terminal, let's close the server and run this command. Now if you open package.json, you're gonna see another dependency called Nodemon. Now let's start our server using Nodemon. So let's add a script for it. So let's add here a script, start. This script, as I've said before, we use it to run commands using those scripts. So in this command, we're gonna just add the following: Nodemon index.js. Okay, now if you open the terminal and just type npm start to run this script here, Nodemon index.js, you're gonna start the server using Nodemon. And now if you go here and make any changes, for example, this is hello there, and in the localhost hello there, we can make changes here. So we can make it hello world again and press save and go back to our localhost and just refresh. Now it become hello world. If you make it hello only and go back here and refresh, it got back to hello only. Now let me show you how to create multiple routes. But first, let's make our code cleaner. So let's remove this space. And instead of putting this 3000 here and duplicate it here, we can store it in a constant. So const port equals to 3000 and replace this 3000 with port. And let's change this string to the new template letter string of JavaScript. So let's make it package. And instead of this 3000, we're gonna just pass the port. This code, what I've done here is a basic JavaScript code, okay? Now let's create a second route. For example, app.get and put here the route name. For example, about. And then we're gonna add our callback, request and response. And we're gonna return in the response. Let's just return about page like this. Now if you go to our Chrome after saving, if you add here /about and press enter, oops, let's check our server. We forgot to run our server too. So let's just type npm start to start our server. Now let's go and reload again. Now we are in a about page. Let's create another route. So let's copy this code and paste it here and add, for example, contact and make this contact page. Now let's go to Chrome and change this about to be contact. Now we are in contact page. And if you just return it to about, you are in about page. Now I have a task for you. And this task to create a route to return home. Name this route with home and return it inside it home page. Now pause the video and try to do the task with yourself. Now here is the solution. Just add another route with the name home and return inside it home page. So if you go to Chrome and replace this about with home, you will be in the home page. Now it's time to create our database and we're going to use our MongoDB to store data inside it. So in Google, just search for MongoDB and select this first option. Then press here, sign up with Google. If you have already an account, just log in. If you don't have an account, just press here, sign up with Google to create a new account. Now select your email that you want to sign up with and press continue. Now accept the terms and press submit. Now you can answer those questions or you can skip them. So just press here, skip personalization at the down here. Now you have here three options to create your cluster. We're going to use this free option here and scroll down. You can here also change the name of your cluster if you want. After this, just press here, create deployment. Now you will have here database users. We need this username and password for accessing our database. So don't forget to copy this password. And after copying it, because we're going to use it, just press here, create database user. After this, press here on choose a connection method. There are multiple ways to connect our database. I'm going to use this drivers. So press here on drivers. And here are the steps. We are using Node.js more than 6.7. So we will not change this. We're going to just copy this command, npm install MongoDB, just copy it and go to our terminal. So go back to your code and open the terminal and just paste this command, npm install MongoDB, and press enter to install this library. After this, let's go back, just copy this string URL here Just copy it and make sure this is selected to show your password. If it's switched down, the password is going to be disappeared. Okay, so let's go to our VS Code and create a constant here, down here. Const connection string is going to be equal this string, just like this. Now let's press save and let's connect our database using Mongoose. So go back to Google, just search for NPM, and inside it, just search for Mongoose. Now let's copy this command, NPM install Mongoose, and go to our terminal and just paste it here and press enter to install this library. This Mongoose library is a Node.js library that provides an elegant way to interact with MongoDB. At its core, it's an object data modeling library, which means it helps you define data structures, schemas, and models, and provides powerful tools to query, validate, and manipulate your data. We're going to use this Mongoose library a lot in this course, so you will learn a lot about it. But now, let me just show you how to connect our database. So let's close this terminal. So, to use Mongoose, we need first to import it. At the top here, const Mongoose is going to be require Mongoose, like this. Const Mongoose require Mongoose. Now let's scroll down and let's connect our database. So mongoose.connect, and inside this connect method, we're going to pass connection string. Then we're going to just log something, console.log connected to MongoDB, connected to MongoDB, like this. Else, if we got any errors, we're going to catch it. So we're going to use .catch, and we're going to pass the error and just console.log that error, like this. Now let's press save and let's start our server. So here, npm start. Now connected to MongoDB. You should see this message, this log you just added here, connected to MongoDB, because that's to ensure that you connected to MongoDB successfully. Now one last step. If you go to your database, just close this and go to this security tab and select this quick start. You're going to notice something. Here you can add other users. For example, I want to access my database and there's another user wants to access this database. You can create here a username and password for it and just pass it in the connection string. Now we want to make our database accessible from everywhere. If you go here to this tab here, network access, you're going to see this. Here's the list of IPs that allowed. So if you read here, you will be only able to connect your cluster from the following list of IP addresses. But we got here a problem. This IP address may change. So we want to make our database global. I want to make it accessible for all IP addresses. So just press here, add IP address, and see this option here, allow access from anywhere. Just press on it. So you will get this IP. Just add it and press here confirm. Now we have added this address here. So our database now is global and it's accessible everywhere. See this connection string here? In your application, you have to keep secrets safe. Secrets like API keys, password, tokens, important string like this string, connection string here. You shouldn't put them hard-coded like this in your code because it's very bad for security. Since anyone has this string, he can access your database. So it's better to put this string in environment variable. And normally environment variables are stored outside your code, like in the system or cloud settings. But during development, it's common to put them in a file, and we call this file .env. So open Google and search for .env. We got here this library with more than 62 million downloads per week. In Nodejs.env is a small library that helps you to manage environment variables in your application. So let's copy this command to install it. So in terminal, let's pass this command npm install.env. Then let's go and create our .env file. So here, let's create a new file and name it .env. Let's test this library. For example, let's add test password. It's gonna be equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you type environment variables, you shouldn't put them in string like this because we're not gonna type JavaScript code, or even add const here. Don't add const here also. It will be like this. The variable name equals the variable value. Okay? Now to access it, you just go to our index and import the library using the require function .env.config. Now let's try to log our environment variable here. To log it, we can use console.log process.env variable name test password. Now let's start our server and see. So here npm start, we got here undefined. But why? Oops, my bad. I forgot those two parentheses here. Now let's add them and press save. Now we got here the password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you just need to import it like this using the require function. Then you can access it using process.env. Now let's move our connection string to it. So let's copy our connection string and go here and create a new environment variable and name it connection string. It's gonna be equals to our value without any strings. Now let's go back and remove this string, and we're gonna make connection string equals to process.env.connection string from environment variable. Now let's press save and see our log. Great, we got here connected to MongoDB. But let's first try to log our connection string. So console.log connection string. Great, we got here the connection string here, and we successfully connected to our MongoDB. Now let's remove this log, and also this log here. We don't need it, and also this environment variable at the top here, test password. So let's remove it and press save. In this lesson, we're going to learn one of the most important concepts in Node.js, how to import and export modules using require. In this course, we're going to build large projects, and for those large projects, we're going to type a lot of code, and it will be very bad practice to type all the code inside index.js file. Instead of this, we're going to create multiple folders, and inside those multiple folders, we're going to create multiple files inside them. So we can organize our code and files and folders in a good way. Every file in Node.js is a module. So when you create a JavaScript file, Node.js automatically treats it as a separate module. So you can import data from one module to another. But first, to import data from one module to another, you need also to export them. Let me show you. Let me create here a new folder and name it helpers. And inside this folder, we're going to create a math file, this math, to help us with some calculations. And inside it, let's create a function. For example, let's create add function. So const add, it will take two numbers, A and P, and we'll just return A plus P. Now we want to use this add function inside index. To do that, we need first to export it. So module.exports, and just add here the add like this. Now you export this function. Let's go to index and import it. So here in index, we're going to use our require and put the path to it. The path to it inside helpers folder. So to get access, we need to know in which level this helpers folder exists. And it exists in the same level with index. So since they both in the same level, we're going to use only one dot. Then slash, then the folder name, then the file name. Like this. This dot here means we are in the same root or in the same level with this folder. Now let's destruct it and get our add function and try to test it. So here, console.log add, and we're going to add any two numbers, for example 90 and 12, and let's press save and see our log. Look, we got here inside our log 102. It's the result of add. So now we can use the function inside this math file inside this index file. Let's try to add another function. For example, let's try to add subtract. So const subtract. It will take also a and p, and it will return a minus p. Now with this subtract, we cannot use it until we export it. So we here export only add, but we didn't export subtract. So let's add comma here and add here subtract. Now we can use this subtract also. It's pretty easy. If you go to index and add comma here and just add here subtract, now you can import it. Now you can use this function inside this file. Let's try. And instead of this add, let's just add subtract and press save and see the result. Look, 78. Now let me show you another thing. What if you have inside this helpers folder another folder? For example, let's name it loggers, like this. And inside this loggers folder, let's add any file. For example, let's name it result, for example, .js. Now you are in the result file and want to use something from this file, math, but this math is not in the same route. You need to go one level up. So how to go one level up? It's pretty easy. Just use require, and instead of adding one dot, just add two. That means you go one level up. So you can access loggers and math. And you can also get two level ups to go to helpers and index and node modules and so. But now, since we are want to access this math, we will go one level up. So we can access math. Then you can import the add and subtract like this. And you can create your function. For example, let's create a function called result. And this result is going to be just, it will be log here. Let's duplicate this. And inside it, just log, for example, add and pass two numbers. For example, 50 and 50, like this. And to use this result inside index or any file, you just need to export it. So module.exports and just add the result here. Now, if you go to index and want to use this result, just use require, and you're going to go to helpers folder, this helpers, then going to loggers, then going to result. So you'll go here to helpers, then loggers, then result. So in this case, you can use it. So const result is going to be require helpers, loggers, result. And now you can log it. So instead of this log subtract here, we're going to log the result. Now let's see our log. Got here console. We got here just an error. Sorry for this error. It should be console.log like this. Now let's go to the log again. We got here 100. If you go to the result and try to make this 100 and this, for example, 200, you're going to find here 300 in the logger. One last thing I would like to talk about. This called named export. And we got two exports and two import. Named and default. You should use named export if you want to export multiple things by their names. But default export if you want to export only one thing. For example, here in math, we export two functions. So we used named export. But here in result, we want to export only this function. So we're going to use here named export. How to make this named? Just remove that and just add the function like this, the function name. Here's the way how to export it, but you also need to change the way you import it. So go to index.js and remove also those two curly braces like this. Now if you press save, you can get the same result here. So the named export, add curly braces and add anything that you want to export by their names. But the default, you will export it without curly braces. But you have to make sure that this named export only one thing. So you cannot duplicate this code to export two things or something. If you want to export many things, just use the named export, not the default export. Now let's delete all of those codes. I'm going to delete these helpers because we're not going to use them. Let's delete helpers and delete also this code inside index, the result and subtract and so. Let's delete all of that and press save. Now our app is working perfectly. In previous lesson, we've put our connection string in environment variable so we can put it in a safe place. But we got still here a problem. What's this problem? You will push your code using the Git system to your repository. For example, using GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. And when you push this file, .env file, anyone can open it and see your secrets inside it. So now how to make this file is private and not pushed to GitHub with your repository. In this case, we're gonna use our gitignore file technique. What's gitignore? Gitignore is a file with a simple text. We put it in Git project that tells Git which files or folders it should ignore and not track. So we can prevent unnecessary files like this node modules here and protect sensitive data like .env here and keep repository clean and lightweight. So here we're gonna create our .gitignore file and inside it we're gonna add our .env file like this to ask Git system not to track this file, and also we're gonna add node modules and save this file. Now when we push our code to GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket, .env file and node modules are not gonna pushed with the code. In this section, we'll bring everything together by learning how to build and test APIs with proper database integration. This is where you will see how real-world backend applications are structured and how to follow best practices. Here's what you'll learn in this section. Using Postman to test and debug your APIs, implementing CRUD operations with Express.js, creating a Mongoose database model to interact with MongoDB, following best practices for clean, scalable, and maintainable code, and more techniques to take your backend development to the next level. By the end of this section, you'll be able to build complete APIs, test them effectively, and connect them to a database with confidence. What's Postman? Postman is a popular API testing and development tool that developers use to build and test and debug APIs. We use it to send requests to API, so you can make HTTP requests like get, post, put, delete, etc. to a server and see the responses directly. And we can use it also to organize the requests and automate the testing. This Postman program has an amazing tool that we will discover through this course. So press here to download it and select your operation system, Apple or Windows or Linux. Now download it and open it. And let's create a new collection. So here in this plus icon here, we're gonna add a blank collection and we're gonna name it Inventory Management System. I would like to talk with you about backend stats code, or called HTTP stats code. There are standard response codes used by web servers to indicate the result of a client request, like from a front-end app or Postman and so on. And we use those codes when you return a response in your backend. You always send a stats code with a message data. And those are the most important stats codes. We got here 200 for OK, that means success. 201, that's mean created. You can use this when you create a new document in database. And 202 for accepted and 20 for no content. So if a stats code starts with 2, it means the request was successful. If a stats code starts with 3, it means redirection. The client, browser, or app must make another request to get the resource. Okay? So when you start with 2, that means success. When you start with 3, that means redirection. So you go somewhere else. Okay? If you start with 4, that means client errors. For example, 400, bad request. 401, that means unauthorized to do that. So you need to log in to get a token. And sometimes you are logged in, but you don't have the rule to do that thing. So you will get forbidden. For example, if you logged in as a normal user, not an admin, and want to do something that need an admin permission. 404 means not found, and so on. And for those codes that starts with 5, these mean the problem is on the server backend side, not the client. For example, internal server error, not implemented, bad gateway, service unavailable, or gateway timeout. Now let's learn how to post data to database. I mean create data in database. First, let's get rid of those routes. We don't need them anymore. And the home also. Now let's define our module schema. So const, our project talk about bookstore. So we're gonna name it book schema equals to mongoose dot schema, and we're gonna leave it empty for now. Then we're gonna create our book model. So book model equals to mongoose dot model, and this model take 2 main properties. The first, the name, and we're gonna name it book. You can name it whatever you want, but you have to know that this name is important. And it must be string and it cannot be empty. Then we're gonna add this schema, book schema here. This schema here is for MongoDB. We created using Mongoose. The schema is like the way you have to record the document. I mean, the document should look like. And we make it empty for now. Okay? Now let's create our first route, our post route. So we're gonna make it app.post. Previously, we were using .get to get data from database or from specific endpoint. But now we're gonna use post and we're gonna pass endpoint name. For example, box. Then we're gonna add the route handler function. And this is gonna be async function, takes the request and response. And we're gonna create a constant here. So const new book equals to await book model dot create, and we're gonna pass request dot body. This body is the body that user will enter. I'm gonna show you how later. Then we're gonna return the response. The stats code is gonna be 201, and we're gonna return the JSON of new book, this object here. One last step we need to do. We need to tell our Express app that we are using JSON body parser. So here we're gonna add a middleware. So app.use express.json like this. Now let's press save and let's try to test our endpoint. So open Postman and we're gonna press on this plus icon to add a new request. This request is gonna be post request. So change this get and make it post because it's gonna be post request. And our endpoint is gonna be localhost 3000/box. Okay, there is our localhost with port 3000 because we are using this port here, 3000. So HTTP localhost 3000/box. and the body is gonna be JSON. So press here on the body and select this row, and this row select JSON. And now let's try to add some data. For example, book name is gonna be first book. Now let's try to press send. We got here an error, couldn't send request. We forgot to start our server, so let's go back to our code and run npm start our server. Now let's try to send the request again. Now great, we have here the stats code 201 and it's created. But if you have a look here, we got nothing here but the ID. Why is this happening? Because we didn't add yet anything in the schema. So let's try to add this book name in the schema. So here in the book schema, we're gonna add book name, and this book name, the type of it is gonna be string, and it's gonna be required. So required is gonna be true. Now let's try to add it again. Let's try to press send. Great, we've created our first bug. And if you open MongoDB, so here our MongoDB, let's just refresh. See this database, press on clusters and press here on browse collections. Now if you have a look here, we got two documents. The first document without the name, it's only ID, and the second document is our first bug. So our first bug has been posted to our database successfully. Let's try to add another value. For example, count in stock. This count in stock, the type of it is gonna be number, and required is gonna be also true. Now let's try to go to Postman and try to send the book without count in stock. If you press send, look, we got here an error because we got here book validation failed, count in stock path is required. So we need to add it. So count in stock, for example, we're gonna make it 50. Now let's try to press send again. Now great, it's created 201, and here the first bug, and the count in stock is 50. And if you go to our database and press on this button, refresh button, you're gonna see our new bug. Look here, first bug with count in stock is 50. In previous lesson, you've learned how to create data in database. In this lesson, you're gonna learn how to get data from database. First, let's move this route up here before the lesson, okay? And also, before I create the get route, I would like to describe the JSON object in Postman. So in previous lesson, we've opened Postman and we've sent the data through this HTTP request. This called endpoint. This endpoint of box must be the same as here. So if this book or boo like this, this also should be boo like this. So this endpoint must be the same as here. And here's the port number, and here's the local host, and this is referred to your own computer. And this HTTP is the protocol, and this is mean it's a normal web request over HTTP, okay? And here we are sending the body, the request body, and this request body is a JSON object, and this JSON object have some rules. You cannot make it like this, so you cannot remove those two strings in the key. You should add those two signs in the key and in the value also. But this we didn't add here the strings value because it's a number, not string. And also you should have a comma between attribute and another, okay? Now let's go to VS Code and create our get route. So here we're gonna use app.get, and we're gonna add the same endpoint here. And also we're gonna add our async and pass request and response. And we're gonna create a constant called book list. And it's gonna be await book module. It's the same as before here, but we just change this post, make it get. And also instead of create, we're gonna use find. And we're gonna return in the response res.send the box. or POC list, this constant here. And we're gonna make the status 200. Now let's try to get our list of POCs. So here in Postman, here is our post request. Let's rename it. Let's make it add new POC. And let's create a new request. Press on this plus icon. And we're gonna name it get POC list. And the endpoint is gonna be the same here, box. Now let's press send to see. Great, we have here the status code is 200, and here the three of POCs. The first POC and the first POC with count in stock is 50. Let's try to add a new POC here. For example, let's change the book name here and make it Node.js POC, and the count in stock is 5 only. And let's try to send this request. Now it's created, and let's try to get the list of POC through this request here and press send. Now look, we got here 4 POCs, and the last one is Node.js POC. In this lesson, we're gonna learn how to handle errors in our routes. So here, for this post request, we're gonna use try catch, and try catch is a programming construct used for error handling. So we can type the code in the try block, and if we get any error, we're gonna just catch this error. So here's the syntax of try catch. Try and block and catch error and another block. So we're gonna put our code that we want to execute inside it. So we're gonna copy this and paste it here. This is the code for creating a POC. And inside the catch, we're gonna just return in response the stats code. Let's make it, for example, 400. And we're gonna JSON the error message. So we're gonna send a message here, and it's gonna be error.message like this. Now let's try to test our post request here. So let's open Postman and try to create a new POC, but we want to add some error. For example, let's make this POC name. Let's just make it name like this. Now let's press send. Now look, we got here a message. POC validation failed. POC name path. POC name is required. Great, isn't it? Now if we return it to POC name and press send, now we got no errors. And we got status code 201. Let's add this try catch to our get route. Can you do it with your own? Please pause the video and try it with your own. Now, let me show you how to do it. We're gonna add the try block, and inside it, we're gonna just add inside this code, and inside our catch block, we're gonna return stats code 400, and the message is gonna be error.message like this. Now our code is not formatted. I would like to format our code. In extensions, if you open extensions in VS Code and search for prettier, you're gonna find this wonderful extension called prettier. It's for code formatting, and it's very good for JavaScript and other programming languages. If you see here, it got more than 60 million of downloads. Now I'm gonna format our code. Just right click and format document, or you can use this shortcut here, Option and Shift and F. Now my code is formatted and it looks more better than before. Previously, we've created this route, get list of POCs route. And in this lesson, we're gonna create get a single POC by ID route. So this return a list of POCs, and today in this lesson, we're gonna just return a POC object. So here, as we've done before, it's gonna be app.get, and we're gonna add the same endpoint here, but we're just gonna add this slash with ID. So we ask the user to pass the ID, since this ID is a route parameter, meaning the client can call URL like this, box slash and custom ID, okay? Then we're gonna add our async function that takes request and response Then we're gonna use our try catch block. So it's the try block, catch here. For the error, we're gonna just return this response here as before. And in try, we're gonna just add the following. We're gonna await book model dot find by ID. And we're gonna just add this ID. But where we can get this ID from, we're gonna get it from params, request.params. So we're gonna just add here const the ID equals request.params. Okay, and we're gonna store our book inside a constant. So const book equals to await book model dot find by ID. And finally, we're gonna just return this box. So res dot status 200.json this box. Now let's try our endpoint get book by ID. So here let's open our Postman, and first let's start our server. So here, npm start to start our server. Then we're going to Postman, and we're gonna duplicate this request. So just press here at this 3 dots here and press here on duplicate, or you can use this shortcut. We're gonna rename this request to make it get book by ID. Why the endpoint is, oops, because we didn't save this. So let's copy it. Because we didn't save this request early, we copied this request without its data. Okay, now let's add some ID here. For example, let's fire this request to get list of parks. We want to get this Node.js park with count in stock is 5. So let's just copy this ID and go to our get book by ID and pass the ID here and press send. Now look, we can get a single park in a single object. Let's try one more time. Let's try to get this first park with count in stock property. So let's copy the ID of it and paste it here and press send. Now look, we can get our book data. In the session, we're gonna create delete request to delete data from database. So here we're gonna define our route. It's gonna be app.delete. See this line? We can get it like this. The parks and pass the ID as param and just add our async function. So here inside delete, we're gonna just add the route box with ID as route param and create our async function that take request and response. We're gonna create our try catch block. So it's try and it's catch. We can copy the catch block from above here like this. And inside try, first we need to access our ID from params. So let's copy this code here, this line here. Const ID equals to request.params. And we're gonna await this promise book model dot find by ID and delete. And we're gonna just add the ID here. And finally, let's just return a message. So res.status 200.json. And we're gonna add a message here with book deleted successfully. Now let's try to delete a book. So let's go to Postman and let's create here a new request. This request is gonna be delete. So let's name it with delete book. And inside this get, we're gonna just make it delete like this. And the endpoint is gonna be like the get by ID. It's gonna be HTTP localhost 3000 box. You have to make sure that this endpoint must be this endpoint here, okay? As I've mentioned before. Now, we can get this ID of this box. So if you press here, we can get it. But now, if you delete it, you're gonna see this message, box deleted successfully. And if you try to get it by ID again, look, it's null because it's deleted. And if you press and if you try this request, get book list, you will not find it. Let's try to delete this also. This item without name or count in stock. So let's get the ID of it and paste it here and press send. Now it's successfully deleted. And if we try to get the list again, now look, we have only 3 bugs instead of 4. But if you press delete again, you will find this message, bug deleted successfully. So we want to add a message here. So we're gonna store this response in a constant. Let's name it deleted bug, okay? And we're gonna create an if condition. So if there is no deleted bug, we're gonna just return res.status 404, that's mean not found, and the message is gonna be bug not found. Now let's try to delete a deleted bug. So here in Postman, let's try to delete. Look, we got here a message, bug not found. And let's try to get it by ID. So if you press here, and instead of getting null, we want also to get this message, bug not found. So you can add the same code here. Make this condition. If you don't get the bug, just return this message. So we can just copy this code and go to get bug by ID, and we can paste those 3 lines here. But instead of this deleted bug, we're gonna just add this bug like this. Okay, now if we try our Postman again and press send, look, bug not found because it's deleted. Next lesson, we're going to learn how to edit a bug. Now it's time to update data in database. See this delete route that we created in previous lesson to delete item from database? Update data is similar, so we can just copy this route and duplicate it, and instead of app.delete, we're gonna app.put. To update data, you have put and patch. Put and patch are both HTTP methods for updating resources, but they behave differently. Put for full update and patch for partial update. Partial update meaning update only specific fields. For example, if you want to update only count in stock or POC name. So patch for partial update and put for full update. So we're gonna use here put, not patch. And later in e-commerce app, we're gonna use patch in some cases. Now here's the first change. Instead of delete, we're gonna just make it put. The second change, this deleted bug, we're gonna rename it updated bug. And instead of find by ID and delete, we're gonna make it find by ID and update. So instead of this delete, we're gonna make it update. And this find by ID and update is a method that takes 3 things. The first thing is the ID, and this is referred to ID of the document. I mean the ID of bug that you want to update. The second thing is request.body, and it's the new data that you want to update. And also, if you want to return the new value, we're gonna just add this third property. New, we're gonna make it true to return it with the updated bug, not the old bug. Okay, now let's change also this message. Instead of bug deleted successfully, we're gonna make it bug updated successfully and return with it the updated bug like this. Now let's try our put request to update the bug. So here, let's go to our Postman and let's create a new request. We're gonna name it update bug. And now we're gonna select put and we're gonna add the URL. Here is the URL. And after it, we're gonna add some ID. Let's take any ID, for example, this first bug. We're gonna take the ID of it. So we're gonna pass it here and we're gonna press here on the body to send the body in the request. We're gonna select row.json. Let's take the body from here, from this post request, and paste it here. Now the bug name, we want to make it updated bug, and the count, let's make it 60. Now let's press send. Now we got this message, bug updated successfully. And here's the new updated bug. And if you go to get bug list, Now if you press send, look, we got here the updated bug with count in stock is 60. Let's try to update this last bug here. So let's take the ID of it and go here and let's name it updated bug 2. And the count, we're gonna make it 100. Now let's press send and let's go to get list of bugs again. Now look, updated bug 2 and the count is 100. Now you've covered the CRUD operations. Put for update, delete for delete, get for reading the data, and post for creating data in database. If you have a look at your code, you're gonna see that you type all of those routes in index.js file. This index file is the entry point, and it should be simple and very clean. So we're gonna move those routes in another file. So here in your files, let's create a new folder. Let's name it routes. And inside this routes folder, we're gonna create a new file. We're gonna name it box.routes.js. And we're gonna copy all of that code. So starting from here, this box schema, let's highlight all of our code from the schema until the port. We're gonna just copy it and paste it here like this. And don't forget to import express. So here const express equals to require express and also mongoose. So const mongoose equals to require mongoose. And from express we're gonna create a new router object. So here const router equals to express.router like this. Now let's replace this app with router. So here instead of app.post we're gonna make it router.post and router.get, router.get, router.delete, router.pot. And to use this router in other JavaScript files, we need to export it. So here module.exports equals to router. Now we can use this router in index.js file because we exported, but to use it we need to import it in index first. So here in index.js we will import it using the require function. So here const book router equals to require, and since we're gonna import something from the file, we need to put the path to the file and the path to the file inside the routes folder. So here, since we are in the same route, we're gonna just add one dot because we are in the same route. Then we're gonna select the routes, this folder here. Then we're gonna select this file, box.routes, like this. And finally, we need to add this book router inside a middleware. So to add a middleware, we just type app.use and give here the name of the route. In our case, it's box, and pass the route. And it's called book router. So this app.use tells Express for any request that starts with box, delegate the handling to book router, this file here. And one last thing we need to do, since we've added box here in the main entry point, no need to add them here. So we're gonna delete this box here, and from here, and from here also, we're gonna just keep the ID, and here also just keep the ID, and finally here also just keep the ID. Now let's press save and try to test our endpoints. So now let's try to get list of box. It worked as expected. Here also get bug by ID. It also worked as expected. Let's try to add a new bug. It also worked as expected. But now the code is more cleaner and structured well. So we put the box route in just a single file. So we can have multiple routes. For example, another route for users or another route for products. And you will practice this later in this course when we build an e-commerce project that we're gonna create multiple routes inside it. In previous lesson, we've separated the route from index.js file And in this lesson, we're gonna make our code more concise and cleaner and well structured. When we separate this schema also, the schema and the model. So inside the folders, we're gonna create a new folder and we're gonna name it models. And we're gonna create a model for the pack. So pack.model.js. And we're gonna copy that code, this model here, with box schema. We're gonna just copy it and paste it here. And don't forget to import also this Mongoose. And the same as the routes. Now we are done with our POC model, but to use this code inside other JavaScript files, we need to export it. So we're gonna just add module.exports equals to mongoose.module, like this. Now let's press save and go and import it here inside box route. So here we're gonna import it using the require function. So require, we will go to other file. So we want to go level up. So to go level up, just add 2 dots. If you are in the same root folder, just 1 dot is enough. But if you want to go up, because we are here, we want to go to our model. So we're gonna just add 2 dots to go up a level. Now we're gonna select the models file. Now we're gonna select the models folder. Again, the POC.model. And let's store it with a constant called POC model. Now let's press save and let's test our application again. Now here's Postman. Let's try to post a new POC. It works as expected. Let's try to make any changes here in the model. For example, let's add a new property, for example, price. So here price, and it's gonna be required. And the type of it is gonna be number. So the price, the type is number, and it's required. Now let's try to create one. It should throw an error. Look, bad request, because we need to add the price. So here, let's add the price. Let's make it, for example, 40. Now let's press send. Now a new POC has been created. Now the module in a single folder, the routes in other single folder, and the entry point is too much cleaner. So we can add multiple routes and multiple models. If you have a look here in the response, you will find that we return the ID using this key, _ID. Front-end apps often prefer to use ID instead of _ID. So we want to return the ID with key name ID, not _ID. To do this, we're going to go POC model and create a function here. We're going to put this function inside POC schema.virtual, and we're gonna name the value is id.get, and inside get we're gonna just add a function, and inside this function we're gonna return this dot underscore id dot to hex string, like this. So we tell this box schema here with those values, we use the virtual. This virtual in Mongoose is a property that doesn't get stored in MongoDB but is calculated on the fly. It's useful for creating derived values or aliasing existing values. For example, this underscore ID here. Then we pass here a getter function for this virtual property, and this return underscore ID, but we convert it to hex string because underscore ID is object ID, which is not a plain string, so we convert it to hex string. And finally, we're gonna set our POC schema to allow it accept the virtuals. So we're gonna set virtuals to be true, because by default, normally when you convert Mongoose document to JSON, virtual properties are not included by default. So we set it to true to include it by default. Now let's press save and let's try to test our endpoint. So let's try to send a GET request. Now look, we got here an ID with key ID, and it's the same value of underscore ID. It's very useful and better for front-end developers. Better than underscore ID. When I started creating this project, I put in mind to make our book schema is very simple. So I started with only book name and count in stock and price. Then I added the price. But now I want to make some changes in our schema here. First, let's format our code. So let's press here format document. Second, let's add some enhancement to this field. For example, this required is true. We want to add a message. So if you want to add a message, put this true inside an array and add your message here. For example, book name is required, like this. And also we can add to it min length, like this, to make the min, for example, 5 characters. So if you try to add a book with characters less than 5 characters, it will not be acceptable. So let's go, for example, to Postman and try to add a new request here. Let's, for example, name it with only n and press send. Look, book validation, book name length 1 is shorter than the minimum allowed length. The minimum allowed length is 5. And if you want to add a proper message or a good message better than this, you can do as we've done previously. Put it inside an array and add here book name must be at least 5 characters long, like this. Now let's try to test again. Look, book name must be at least 5 characters long. Also, you can add max length. So max length, you can make it 50. And also, you can add some message here. For example, book name cannot exceed 100 characters. Since we put here 100, let's put here also 100. So if you try to add a book name with more than 100 characters, it's not gonna be allowed. Now for count in stock, the type of it is a number and it's required. Let's add a message here. So stock count is required and the min is gonna be 0 or 1 at least. And the message is gonna be stock count cannot be less than 1. And the max is gonna be 255. And the message is gonna be stock cannot exceed 255. Here, because the type is string, we use min length and max length. And here, since the type is a number, we use min and max and pass here numbers. So now let's try to add something with count in stock is 0. So here in Postman, let's make the count in stock 0. And let's try to send this request. Look, let's increase the book name, for example, Node.js, and press send. Look, stock count cannot be less than 1. If you make the stock, for example, 400, look, cannot exceed 255. Now the price also, we want to add some rules for the price. I want you to pause the video and to do it as a task. I want you to do the following. First thing, the price, it should be true, and add a message for it that tells the user price is required, and make the min is $1 and the max is $10,000 with messages. Now pause the video and try to do it. Great job, you did it. Here I just added required with price is required. This is the message, and the min is $1 and the max is $10,000. Now we want to add another property. It's the date created. So here we're gonna add a new property, date created, or you can name it created add. The name is up to you. And the type of it is date. And the default is gonna be date.now, like this. Now let's try to add a new bug. The count in stock, let's make it 100. And the price is 40. Now let's try to send this request. Look what we got. We got here, date created is 1 September 2025. It's the date of now. One last thing we need to add is an image URL for the bug. So we're gonna add image, and the type of image is gonna be string because it's an image URL. The default value, we're gonna make it image string. You can also use regex to validate the input. For example, we can add validate this property, and inside it we're gonna add validator, and this validator take a function, and if we don't have any value, we're gonna just return true because it's not required. This image URL is not required. Else, we're gonna return this regex. So return HTTPS. We're going to just add this regex.test. .test. And add with the validator a message. This message is gonna be image must be a valid URL. This code here is a regex code. You can search about it. This is to test if the value the user entered is a valid image URL or not. For example, let me test. If you add here the image, the key was image. If you put here not valid URL, for example, anything, and press send, look, image must be a valid URL. But if you got a valid URL from the web, for example, let's take an image from Google Images. So here, let's search for image. Let's take any image, for example, this image. Let's copy the URL of it and paste it in Postman. Now, if you press send, look, the new book is created with this image URL. In this section, we'll learn how to validate user input in Node.js applications using Express Validator. Input validation is one of the most important parts for building secure and reliable applications. Without proper validation, users might send invalid data, cause errors in your app. With Express Validator, you'll be able to ensure fields like email, password, and phone number are correctly formatted. Add custom validation rules to match your business logic. Provide clear and useful error messages to the users. By the end of this section, you will know how to integrate Express Validator into your project and apply validation to routes in a clean and reusable way. In previous lesson, we've added some validation using our schema here. This validation here. Is there approach better than this? Of course, there it is. And it will be in the route here. So each route will have his own validation. You can use this using a lot of if statement conditions, or there's a better approach using Express Validator library. So if you open NPM and search for Express Validator, select this first library, Express Validator. See this wonderful library? It will save a lot of code that you will need to write to add validation. So first we need to install this library. So let's copy the installation command and go to our VS Code. And in a new terminal, let's install it. npm I Express Validator. Now the package is installed. Now let me show you how to use it. First, you need to import it. So here, require Express Validator. And we're gonna import from it the body. And this is referred to the body that you will send in your HTTP request and the validation result. And this is referred to the result of the validation. It's the valid body or not valid body. Now here inside this post request, we're gonna add here a middleware. Middleware in Node.js is a function that executes during the request response cycle. And it has access to the request and response objects. You can think about middleware as a chain of functions that process a request before it reaches your final route handler. And you can add your middleware here in this place between this async function and the route name. You can add here the middlewares. And here we're gonna add our middleware, and it's gonna be an array. This array is gonna be an array of Express Validator middleware functions that validate the request body when we create a new bug. So here we're gonna use our body that we imported from this library. So here body, then add here the keys of your book schema. So if you open book model here, you're gonna find book name, count in stock, price, date created, and image. We're not gonna add validation to date created because it will refer to the date of now, but we're gonna add the validation for those 4 keys: image, price, count in stock, and POC name. So first let's take the POC name and add it here. And we don't make it not empty, so we're gonna use our not empty method. And this is referred to make our POC name is not empty. So you have to add a POC name. And we can add a message with it. So with message, let's add some message. For example, POC name is required, like this. And here we want also to add min length and max length. So we can use another method called isLength. And we're gonna add inside it the min, and it's gonna be 2. And the max is gonna be, what was the min and max? The min is 5 and the max is 100. Like this. So, and we can also add a message here. So with message, POC name must be between 5 and 100 characters, like this. Let's try to make our code more beautiful than this. So here we're gonna put this in a new line, like this. Or it's better to format our code using the prettier formatter. So right click and press here format document, like this. Now we added validation to our POC name. Let's add validation to the price. So here, after this comma, let's gonna add body of price, and this is gonna be not empty as well. With message, price is required, and is gonna be, you can use isInt or isFloat, but isFloat is better. Why? Because if you make it isInt, he will not accept decimal numbers. For example, 1.5. and so it's better to make it isFloat because prices are float. Okay, and we're gonna make the min 1 and max, we're gonna make it 1000, and we're gonna add message with it. Price must be between $1 and $1,000. And here's the price. Now we also have count in stock and the image. So let's add comma here and add body, and let's add count in stock. You have to make sure that this key must be the same key here. So you cannot add, for example, like this, or count stock like this. No, you have to put the same key in the POC model schema. Okay, now the count in stock is gonna be not empty as well. With message, stock count is required, and it's gonna be a number. So we're gonna make it isInt. In this case, we're gonna use isInt because you cannot add 1.5 POC. It doesn't make sense, okay? So we're gonna make it integer. So it's gonna be integer with min 1 item and max 255 items. And we're gonna add here error message, and it's gonna be stock count must be an integer, or let's make it must be between 1 and 255, like this. Finally, let's add the image. So here, body of image, and it's gonna be not empty as well. With message, image URL is required, and it's gonna be is URL. With message, image must be a valid URL, like this. Now in this case, you don't need to add this regex here. So this library allows you to use this method isURL to validate if your body is a valid URL or not. Now we are done with our schema here. It's time to add the validation result. So let's go up here and copy this validation result here. And here inside our route here, before our new POC, we're gonna add the validation result of the request, and we're gonna store the result inside errors. And this errors is an array of errors. So we're gonna add here a single if statement. So if we don't get errors dot is empty, we will return response.status 400, status code 400, and we're gonna return the list of errors. So errors, it will be errors.array. Now let's save our code and try to test our validation. So here in Postman, if you press here to send to create a new pack, you can create new pack correctly. Now let's try to make any errors. For example, this price, let's make it 0 and try to send the request. Now we got here our message, the type is failed, and the message here, price must be between 1 and 1000. Like this message here, 1 and 1000. Let's try to make an error in count in stock. For example, the max is 255. So here, let's make the price 15 and count in stock. Let's make it 1000 and try to create send request. Look, we got here also bad request. Stock count must be between 1 and 255. So let's return it. Now let's try to test our image URL. So let's remove, for example, URL and type anything, for example, HHH, and press post. Look, we got here a message. Image must be a valid URL. And when you return it to a valid URL again and press send, now you can create a new pack with a valid URL. In previous lesson, we've added our validation to post new pack request. And in this lesson, we're gonna add this validation to our put request. So we can copy this array. See this array, we're gonna copy it and go down here to our put request like this. And in this place between the route name and the async function, we're gonna paste our array like this. And we're gonna just add some changes. The first, for book name, instead of making not empty, we're gonna make it optional. Because we are updating the pack, not creating a new one. So it will take the old name from database. For example, what if you want only to update the price or the count in stock or the image? For this, we're gonna make our book name is optional. And no need to this message here. We're gonna just add the length and the message for the length. Oops, we got here an error. The min must be 5. Sorry for this. The min must be 5, not 2. Let's fix it at the top here also. Sorry for this mistake. Now we're gonna make those changes to other body element. For example, here also, instead of not empty, we're gonna make it optional and remove this message. And here also optional and remove this message. And finally, here also is optional and remove this message. And let's remove this comma because we'll have a syntax error. Now we're done with the body, but if you have a look here, you're gonna see another difference between the put request and post request. And this difference is this ID. In updating, you need to pass the ID, but you don't send the ID in the body. We send it as a param here. So how to add validation for params is Express Validator library. Allow us to validate also the params. Of course, it allows. So if you go up here, you can add a third import called param to validate the params. So you can import it and go down here inside the put request. And instead of typing body.id, you're gonna just type param with ID, and it's gonna be .mongo is Mongo ID with message invalid book ID. Invalid book ID. And don't forget to add a comma here. Now let's press save. Now our last step is to add our validation result in our route. So we can copy it from the post request. It's the same. So let's go up here and copy this function with this if statement. So let's copy it. And let's go down and paste it here. And let's format our document. Now let's press save and go and test our update request. So here let's go to our Postman. Let's try to update this pack with a valid ID. Make sure you get the valid ID from the pack list. Let's try to make the count in stock is 1.6 and press send. Look, we got here a validation error. Let's try to make it, for example, 0. We got also here the error. Let's make it 100. And let's try to add not valid ID. So let's try to remove two numbers from the ID param, and let's try to press send. Look, we got here bad request with errors, invalid bug ID. Now, next lesson, we're gonna refactor our code because this code looks not good. So next lesson, we're gonna refactor it and move this middleware inside another file. Now it's time to refactor our code. So let's move those validation middlewares to another JavaScript file. So here, let's create a new folder and name it validators. And inside it, we're gonna create a new file and name it bug.validator.js. Now let's move our code to it. So here, we're gonna copy this middleware, this array. So let's just cut it. And here, let's paste it and save it inside a constant. So const create bug validation equals to this array. And let's refactor our code. Second, let's also move the update validation. So here, let's copy this array also and go here. So const update bug validation equals to this array. And also, let's move this function here, the validation result and this if condition. Let's create a function to make our code reusable. So let's cut this code also and go to our bug validator and create a function. Let's name it handle validation errors, and it's gonna be JavaScript arrow function, and we're gonna paste our code here. So errors equals to validation result of request, and if we have errors, we're gonna just return them. And we want to continue if we don't have any errors, so we're gonna just add next, call it to continue to the route handler. This next passes control to the next middleware route handler. And don't forget to import this function and the body and the param from Express Validator. So here, let's go to our book routes and let's copy also this code here. And let's paste it at the top here. So here we import the body, validation result, and the param from Express Validator. Now, one last step is to export those middlewares. So if you want to use this code inside another file, we want to use those validation in POX route file. So we need to export those middlewares first. So here, at the bottom, module.exports, we're gonna export create bug validation and update bug validation and handle validation errors, this function here. Now let's press save and let's go and import those middlewares and this function. So here we're gonna require, we are in the route, so we want to go one level up, so dot dot, then we're going to go to our validators folder, then we're gonna select bug validator, and from it we're gonna just import create bug validation and handle validation errors and update bug validation. For our create bug, we're gonna just add create bug validation middleware here. After this comma and before async and await function, like this. Let's format our code, just make it like this. So you add here the route name, then the validation, then your async function. And instead of this validation function and this if condition, we can just remove it. And we can use also handle validation errors here that we've created in our validator file. Now let's do the same in the put request. So let's go down here. After the ID, we're gonna just add our update bug validation. And after it, we're gonna also add the validation errors like this. Now let's format our document like this. And let's try to test our code. So here, let's open Postman and let's try to add a new bug. Oops, we got here internal server errors. Let's go and see the error. We got here an error, rec is not defined. The request is not defined. We forgot to add the request here inside our handle validation errors. So it's important to add the request in this function because we are using here the request and response. So we got here error, request is not defined, and if I fix it, you're gonna also another error, response is not defined. So we need to add the request, response, and next also. So let's add them here. So rec and res and next, and let's press save. Now let's try to test again. Now we don't get any errors in the log. Let's try to send a request to create a new bug. Now, great, the bug is created. Let's try to make any validation errors. For example, let's make the price -1. Now look, we got here a price error. Everything works perfectly. Now let's go and try to update a bug. So let's try to make, for example, the count in stock 9,000 or 90,000. Now look, we got here error, bad request. Let's try to make it 40. Now everything works correctly. Next lesson, we're going to add validation to delete and get by ID. Now we still have to add some validation to our get bug by ID and delete bug by ID. If you remember, we passed the ID as a param, so we need to import the param from express validator. So here, const equals to require express validator. We're gonna import the param like this. And we just add our param here. So we just add here an middleware, and we just add param of ID, and we make it dot is Mongo ID, and with message we add some message. For example, invalid book ID, like this. We just add the param, and with a message invalid book ID. Here is for get by ID. You can also make the same and delete like this. But in this case, you are duplicating code, and duplicating code in programming is a very bad practice. So it's better to create only one here for get by ID, delete by ID, and also put request. So since we've created our bug validator, so let's make our code here inside this file. So let's copy this line here and go to our bug validator, and let's create a new validation here. I'm gonna name it ID validation, and it's gonna be the code that I have just copied. Param of ID is Mongo ID with this message, and don't forget to export it. So here, let's export it. Now you can edit your get by ID here, ID validation, and also here without duplicating code, but don't forget to import it from the top here. From bug validator, just import it, ID validation, like this. And also, let's go to our put request and add it here, ID validation, before the update bug validation, and press save. And let's go to our bug validator, and no need to this line also. We can remove it from update bug validation because we are now using this. Now let's format our document. And let's try our routes. So here, let's try to update this bug. Great, it's updated successfully. Let's try to remove the ID or make wrong ID. Now look, invalid bug ID. Now let's try to delete a bug. So let's open delete request and let's get an ID. Now when we press send, bug deleted successfully. But if you have a wrong ID, now we got this error. Cast to object failed for value. Why we don't get our message? I know why. Because we add our validation ID, but we didn't add yet our function, handle validation errors. So we need also to add this function after the validation ID. So here, let's add it here in delete and also in update by ID. So don't forget to add also the handle validation errors beside your validation middleware. Okay, now let's press save and let's now try to test it. Now when you press send, look, we got here the error invalid bug ID. Now let's try to go and test get by ID. Let's try send. Look, we got also the message. So the three routes are using this function and this ID validation without duplicating code. So duplicating code in programming is very bad practice, and it's better to not duplicate the code. One of the benefits of not duplicating the code is when you make a change in your code, it will be applied to other codes. For example, if I change this message, let's make it, for example, bug ID must be a valid Mongo DB object ID, like this. Now you can see this message here in the get and in update and also in delete. So you make the change in just one line in one place, and this change got applied in all places. In this section, we'll learn how to add localization to our Node.js application. Localization allows your app to support multiple languages so that users can interact with it in their own preferred language. This is especially important if your project has an international audience. With localization, you will be able to translate messages, labels, and error responses into different languages, detect and switch the user language dynamically, organize and manage translation files for easy maintenance, provide a better user experience by making your app feel more personal and accessible. By the end of this section, you will understand how to implement I18N in Express and structure your translations and make your project ready for users around all the world. In resources in this lesson, you're going to find this file, this PDF file with name language codes. Those language codes are very important for localization because there is a header in HTTP called accept language header. And browsers and mobile apps send this header to indicate the user's preferred language. So if user select ER, he will get response with Arabic language. And if he select DA, he will get response with Danish language and DE for German language. So those codes are very important. So please save this file because you will need it in localization implementation. To use localization, you need 3 libraries. The first library is IETnext. In this library, it's the core internationalization library that handles translation logic. So let's install it. So let's copy this command and go to our code editor and paste it here to install it. The second library called I18next FS Backend. We use this package to load resources from the file system. I mean the language files. I'm gonna show you later. So let's copy this command to install it and paste it here and press enter to install this library. The third library called next HTTP middleware, this library here. So let's copy this command to install it and let's go to our terminal and press enter to install it. Now we got those 3 libraries. If you go to our package.json, you'll find 3 of them: I18next, 18next FS Backend, 18next HTTP middleware. Now let's go and add some testing files. So here, let's create a new folder and name it locales for localization. And let's start with 2 languages. The first is er.json and the second en.json. Let's add some testing key here. For example, testing is gonna be testing. And for Arabic, testing is gonna be اختبار, like this. Now let's go to our index.js and import our 3 libraries that we've installed already. So here in index.js, we're going to require, let's import it at the top here, require I18next and store it in a constant, I18next. And the second library is I18next fs backend, and we're gonna store it in a constant and name it backend. And finally, the last library is the middleware, and we're gonna store it in a constant. We're gonna name it middleware. Now let's configure our 18 next here. So here down here, i18 next dot use. We're going to use our backend. It is to enable the file system to load, those two JSON files, er and en. So we use this library to load the translation from our JSON files. Then we're going to add middleware.language detector. Let's make each one at single line to make our code cleaner. Then we're going to init and pass here an object. First, we're going to add the fallback language, and it's referred to the default language. If the requested language isn't available, fall back to English. So we're going to make the main is English. And we're going to add our files path. So we're going to add load path to the path of our files. Our files located in locales. So we're going to type locales. Now we got here two, er.json and en.json. You cannot type er.json, or you cannot also type en.json. So we want to make our library select by default. So to handle this issue, we're going to add two curly braces like this and add here lang like this to select each language from the request because it got replaced with the language code. Okay. And finally, the middleware application. So here, app.use. And we're going to pass middleware.handle i18 next. Like this, as simple as that. Now, let's try to create a test route. Okay, so here, let's create app.get. The route name is gonna be testing. And we're going to add our async function with request and response. And we're going to return in the response.send. Now you can type here anything that you want. For example, hello world. Let's try to test this testing route. Don't forget to add this slash here, testing route. Now let's go and open Postman and try to get this route. So here let's create a new request for testing. Testing the path. Let's copy our localhost here and just add our testing. We got here testing. I forgot to add T. Now look, we got here hello world in the response. Now let's try to add localization to this hello world. So instead of return hello world, you can just add rec.t. This T refer to translation. And instead of passing hello world here or testing here, you just need to pass this key here, this testing key, just like this. Now it will return the value in this translation file. So let's try to test. When you press send, oops, we got here an error. Request.t is not a function. We got here rec.t is not a function. Look, our route is initialized before our middleware here. We should add it after this middleware, okay? I'm happy because I'm facing those errors with you because you will learn a lot from those errors. Now let's press save and let's try to test again. Now let's press send. Look, we got here testing. Look at this testing. You can find it in English.json. If you want to render the Arabic, you just need to go here and go to our headers and add this header, accept language, and add here ER, the code of Arabic. Now, if you press send, look, you got here اختبار, and it's the Arabic translation for testing. Let's try to add a third language, for example, German. So here, let's add a new file with de.json. You have to know that you have to add here the language code, okay? Now, this testing, the translation of it in German is gonna be testen, like this. Now, if you go to Postman and pass here the header de, you will find here testing, the German translation for this word, testing word. In previous lesson, we've set up the localization. In this lesson, we're going to add the translations. So let's go to our index.js, and first let's get rid of this testing route. It was just for testing, so let's remove it. And now let's go to our book router and add translation here. We don't need this import anymore. Here's the param. We don't need it. Let's go and pick any static English strings and translate them. For example, this book not found, and book deleted successfully, and book updated successfully. So let's copy them. First is book not found, and go to our en.json. No need to this key here. Let's add a new one, book not found, and paste the string for it, book not found. And go here, and instead of adding it statically like this, we're going to just add rec.t to add the translation for it, and pass the key, not the value. So you have to pass this key, and make sure this key must be the same as this key, because this key refers to this translation inside English if the user select the English language, and it will be the Arabic or German if the user select the Arabic or German language, as we will do later. So now we're done with first translation. Let's go and make the same here. So let's copy this part, book not found, and paste it here, and paste it here also. Now we still got two translations, book updated successfully and book deleted successfully. So let's copy this string and go here and add another value, book deleted successfully, and it's gonna be this value, book deleted successfully. And let's copy the key and add it here, rec.t, and pass the value here. Now let's go and add the last one, book updated successfully. So let's copy it and add another value, book updated successfully, and paste the value here. And let's go back to our routes, and instead of this message, we're going to add rec.t and pass the value here, like this. Now we have those three messages, book not found, book deleted successfully, and book updated successfully. Let's try to test them. But first, let's add those translations for also Arabic and German. So we can use ChatGPT. So let's copy this and go to ChatGPT, and let's ask him for some help to make those language translations for us. So let's tell him, please add German and Arabic translation for this JSON, and don't change the keys. And now let's press this arrow to ask him for some help. He gave us wrong format. We don't need this format. I'm going to tell him this. Please make 3 JSONs for the 3 languages. Now he got it and he generated for us. Here's for English, here's for German, and here's for Arabic. So let's copy this code for German and go to our da.json and paste it here. And let's go and select the code for Arabic and also paste it inside the Arabic. Now let's try to test those messages. So if we open Postman, we don't need this request anymore, so let's delete it. And let's open our delete request and let's try to press send. Oops, we forgot to start our server. So npm start to start our server. Now let's go to our Postman and press send. We got here failed. Let's try to get valid POC. So let's get a POC list and let's try to delete this POC here. So let's copy the ID of it and let's go to our delete POC and add this ID. Now let's try to press send. Look, we got here the message, bug deleted successfully. If you open the headers and add this header, accept language, and add the language code for German, for example, DE. Now, if you press send, look, we got here this message, Buch nicht gefunden. This is the message, bug not found. If you open here, the DE, look, we got here this message, Buch nicht gefunden. Let's try to delete an existing POC. So let's get this POC with this ID, and let's try to delete it, and let's press send. Look, Buch erfolgreich gelöscht. That means the POC is successfully deleted. If you open the headers here and make the accept language ER and press send, you're going to see this translation, الكتاب غير موجود. That means POC not found. So now we've added the translation for those messages in POC routes. But we need also to add the messages here for this validator. We got here a couple of messages. So how to add translations to those messages? Next lesson we're going to do this. In previous lesson we've added translation to our POC route, and in this lesson we're going to add the translation for those POC validation. If you open POC routes, we get access to request.t to get the translation. But here, how to get access to request.t? If you just type here rec.t and add here some key here, you'll get an error because request is not defined. We cannot get it. So how to handle this? So let's revert everything, and instead of pass here a string, we're going to pass a function. So here we're going to pass a function that will return something, and in this function we'll take two parameters. The first is the value, and here's refer to the value that user input in Postman in the request JSON. And also we can destruct our request, and here since we can get access to request, so instead of passing this string we're going to add some translation here. So let's cut this translation and go for English.json and add the translation here, and let's give it a key. For example, let's make it POC name length validation, like this. Now get this key and go here, and instead of returning static message, we're going to add rec.t and pass this value, POC name length validation. And we are going to do the same for also the price and the count in stock, and for this URL also. So you will write a lot of code. So instead of doing this, we can use ChatGPT. So you can copy this validation here, and let's go to ChatGPT and let's paste this code and ask him to do the following. We're going to tell him, I want to do the following. First, instead of, let's make zoom here, some zoom here, and instead of return the message string, just make it a function like this, and let's give him some sample, this sample here. And second, make English JSON file for all those translation keys. Now let's press enter and see what ChatGPT will do for us. He's doing great. Now he replaced the static values with some English translations keys here, and also add the translation. So let's copy the code from ChatGPT, and let's go back to our VS Code, and let's replace this part with ChatGPT part. Okay. And also let's go to JSON translation, and let's copy those translations here, and let's go for English, and we don't need this last line anymore. Just press the new lines and press save. Depending on AI is very important in these days, because he will make productivity boost and will assist you. So since you understand the logic here, you can depend on the AI to do some repetitive work. So instead of catching those messages and go here and paste them and replace with some keys, you can make the AI make those repetitive tasks for you. Okay, now let's ask ChatGPT for another mission. So let's go to our English here, and let's copy the all file, and let's go to him and tell him, please make 2 JSON files with translation for German and Arabic. And let's paste the English translation here, and let's press enter to get our translation. Now we got here the German translation, so let's copy the code and go to our DE file and let's paste it. And also get the Arabic translation and go to er.json and paste it. Now we are done with Bug Validator. Let me just recap what I've done here. Instead of returning the message as a string, like down here with the message and string, no, I just pass a function that take the request as parameter and add request.t with the translation key to get translated response. Okay, that's pretty easy. Now let's go to our Postman and try to test create bug validation. So let's go to our Postman and let's go to add new POC request. Now let's try to press send. Everything works well. Let's try to add some errors. For example, let's make the count is 0 and press send. Look, we got here failed. Stock count must be between 1 and 255. Let's add a header here. Accept language. Let's make it for Arabic and press send. Don't forget to add this check here, because if you didn't add this check, the header will not work. So let's add this check and press send again. Now look, here is the Arabic translation. يجب أن يكون عدد النسخ في المخزون بين 1 و 255. Here's the Arabic translation. You can also add DE to get the German translation. Now we're done with bug validation. We still got update validation and ID validation. Let's recap how to add translation to our validation inside this with message method. First, you just cut this string and go to translation files and add it. And let's give it a proper key, for example, bug ID validation, like this, and just take the key and go to Validator. Instead of passing the message as a string here, no, we're going to add a function here that take the value and destruct the request and return request.t. This t refer to translation, and just add the key here. So step number 1, instead of passing a string message, we pass a function that return translation over this message. And step number 2 is adding this key inside translation files. We've added it in English. Let's add it in German. Like this. And ask ChatGPT to translate this line. So you can go to ChatGPT and tell him, translate this line for German and Arabic. And please don't change the keys. Now here's the German version. So let's paste it here. And here's the Arabic version. So let's paste it here. Like this. Now we are done with ID validation. Let's go to our update validation. So if you have a look at update validation here, you're going to see that we got this message before. So if you open English, look, we got it here. Book name must be between 5 and 100 characters. So we can copy the value of it. And instead of passing it as a string, we're going to add a function here with value and destruct the request and just return rec.t and pass the key. Here's for book length. Here for the price, we got here also this price range validation here. So we can copy this key. And instead of passing it as a string, we're going to pass a function with value and destruct the request and return rec.translation of this key. And for count in stock, we got also this key here, stock range validation. So let's just copy it And instead of passing it as a string, we're going to pass a function that take the value and destruct the request and just return rec.t with our translation key. And finally, the image validation URL, we're going to go and copy this key here. And instead of passing it like string, we're going to pass it as a function, take the value and destruct the request and return request.t with our value. Now let's press save and let's test our update bug. So let's go to our update and let's try to press send. Look, we got here book must be a valid MongoDB object ID. Let's try to add translations here, for example, German, and press send. Look, Buch ID muss eine gültige MongoDB object ID sein. So now our localization is working perfectly. Now I have two tasks for you. The first task I will solve with you, and the second task I will not solve with you. So the first task is I want you to add two languages, the Spanish language and the Italian language. So this task I'm gonna solve it with you. But I want you first to do it with your own. Then come back and see my solution. Now I'm done with the task. First I open the file of language codes to get the code of Spanish and it was ES, and the Italian and it was IT. So I created two files, one for it.json and another for es.json for Spanish. Then I go to ChatGPT and give it this command. Please make two JSON files for those translations, for Italian and Spanish. And I give it the English file, this file here. Then he generated for me the translation for Italian and translation for Spanish. And finally, I tested it in Postman and I got responses. Here's in Italian and here is in Spanish. So I hope you've done this task successfully, and I have another task for you. I want you in this task to add your own language. So if you are from India, add the Hindi language. If you are from China, add the Chinese language, and so. So it's a task for you. Please add your language here and test it with Postman. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to push your code into a GitHub repository. So here, just open GitHub and press on this button, this plus here, and select this new repository. Here, just add a repository name. For me, I'm going to name it IMS. That's shortcut for Inventory Management System. You can provide your description if you want. And down here, just press Create Repository. So we have here the steps to push your code to your repository. We will skip this because this will add a README file, so we will skip this command, but we will use this command, get init, to initialize a repository. So here, in the terminal of your repository, just paste this command to initialize your repository. Second, here we got here, get add README. We also will change this command, because this command to add just README, but we want to add all the files. So I'm going to use get add dot. Get add and just type dot here to add all the files. Okay. Then we're going to create our commit. So let's copy this command and paste it here to commit our changes. Now the second command to rename our branch to master. So let's just copy it and go to our code and paste it. Then we will use this command get remote. Let's get remote to manage remote repositories. So let's just copy this command and paste it here. And finally, let's push our code to our repository. So let's copy this command and paste it here and press enter. Now we are done and our code is pushed. And if you go back to GitHub here and just refresh the repository page, you're going to find we got here a repository IMS, And here's our code. Now it's time to deploy our Node.js app and make it accessible everywhere to everyone. After publishing our code into a GitHub repository, just go to render website. Just in Google, just type render and select this option, render.com. And press here on dashboard. If you don't have an account, just create a new one. It's very easy. After creating an account, just press here, deploy a web service. Then we need to connect our Git provider. For us, I'm going to use GitHub, so I will choose this GitHub here. After this, just select your repository. Our repository was IMS, Inventory Management System. So just press here to select our repository. And we got here a unique name for our web service. I'm going to keep it like this, IMS. The language here, it's Node, because we are using Node.js. And the branch is master. Continue scrolling. Here's the command to build, NPM install. And here's the start command, node index.js. Select this free option. And scroll down. Here's a very important step. We need to add our environment variables. So let's go back to our code, because our environment variables was not pushed to our code because it's in gitignore, so it will not be in GitHub. So let's go here to our .env file and copy the name. Here's the name. So let's just copy it. And also copy the value. And paste the value here. We got only this environment variable, connect string. So after adding it, just press here, deploy web service. And wait until our Node.js application is deployed. So let's scroll down to see the logs here. Now, great. We got here, your service is live. And it's available on this URL. Now anyone can access our APIs. So let's open this URL. We got here error because we didn't have any endpoint in the root. So let's just add here slash and add box like this. Now you can get here the list of box. And if you take this endpoint also and go to Postman and go to our Postman and select this add new box. Now instead of using our localhost 3000, we're going to use our render URL. And now let's try to add a new box. So let's make the box name here, new box from render, and the count is 1000. And the price, let's make it $1, and let's press send. Oops, we got here an issue. What's the issue? Count in stock. I think that's German language. It should be 255. So let's make the count in stock 50 and press send again. So validation also works. Now we got here our new box. So if you try our URL here and just press refresh here and scroll down, we got here our last box here. New box from render. The count in stock is 50 and the price is 1. And also you can try it in Postman. So here in get POC list. You can replace our localhost with our render URL and press send. And look, we got also here the POC list here. Now anyone can access our APIs and you can use those APIs for your front-end website or your mobile app, etc.